What's up, Facebook and YouTube? Brother Sanchez speaking. Today we're going to be talking about interracial dating, for lack of better words. So we're going to be talking about quote unquote interracial dating. This is a very sensitive subject, so I beg you all to be open-minded. We all have our own opinions, but I pray that you look at all of these videos. I've put this subject off for too long. One of the main things that inspired me to go ahead and deal with this subject was my brother RFG's recent video that he did on this subject. And before I begin, let me say two things. That first, RFG is my brother and I'm gonna ride with him to the end. And second, let me say this, that many of you follow us both, but what you don't realize is that me and RFG don't agree on everything, okay? I don't think you can find me two people anywhere in the world that agree on everything, but that's not what's important. Even with our disagreements, we still laugh it off, share our opinion, and respect one another. Now, with that being said, his recent video on interracial dating, I disagreed with a lot of things in the video, and that's what inspired me to do this video. Now, with that being said, I made this video to give my viewpoints and my philosophy on interracial dating. I have a different understanding of interracial relationships, for lack of better words. You're going to see why I say for lack of better words in a minute. Now, in my first response to my brother RFG's video is that what my brother did was he went through each race and distinguished them by melanin. With that being said, let me quote you an excellent quote by the late great teacher and scholar, Dr. Asa Hillard. What Dr. Asa Hillard said, he said there are two kinds of people in the world: melanated Africans and non-melanated Africans. Let me say that again. There are two kinds of people in the world: melanated Africans and non-melanated Africans. That's a quote by the late great teacher, Dr. Asa Hillard. Rest in peace. He was an excellent scholar. Now, with that being said, let's move on here. My brother went through each race and distinguished them by melanin. But I just told you that there are only two kinds of people in the world: melanated Africans and non-melanated Africans. Now, in a minute, we'll address melanin. Let's move on. He said in his video that the powers that be are trying to do away with the God gene. And my response to that is impossible. See, people, you can't do away with the God gene because the God gene is dominant. Also, I disagree with using the word God gene for the simple fact that there's no real definition for what's called a God gene. And if you look it up, what you will find is that it's more of a theory. And the theory goes this way. The God gene hypothesis proposes that a specific gene, VMAT2, predisposes humans towards spiritual or mystic experiences. The idea has been postulated by geneticist Dean Hamer, the director of the Gene Structure and Regulation Unit at the U.S. National Cancer Institute, and author of the 2005 book, The God Gene: How Faith is Hardwired into Our Genes. The name of the book is How Faith is Hardwired into Our Genes. It also say the God gene hypothesis is based on a combination of behavioral, genetic, neurobiological, and psychological studies. The major arguments of the hypotheses are: spirituality can be quantified by psychometric measurements. In other words, you can measure spirituality. We all know that's foolishness. You cannot measure nothing about spirituality. Let's keep on with this theory now. The underlying tendency to spirituality is partially heritable. I got to disagree with that one. I know people who parents ain't got one spiritual bone in their body, but the children is super spiritual. I know parents who very spiritual and children who have no interest in anything spiritual. So for to say that spirituality is partially heritable, I have to disagree with that one. Spirituality is partially heritable. It's what they're saying. Also, part of this heritability can be attributed to the gene VMAT2. This gene acts by altering monoamine levels, and spiritual individuals are favored by natural selection because they are provided with an innate sense of optimism, the latter producing positive effects at either a physical or psychological level. I have to disagree with that, man, because to me, a Buddhist isn't more spiritual than a Christian, and a Christian isn't more spiritual than a devout Muslim. There's no measurement you can put on spirituality. So I have to disagree with the God gene theory. Okay, now what I will say is this: there are different spiritual experiences based on different people. I'm going to say that again. There are different spiritual experiences based on different people. Also, when we look at religions in the world, we look at a lot of religious people having real strong spiritual experiences, even though they may interpret them wrong and they may lack the knowledge that a true spiritual person may have. Doesn't limit them from having a spiritual experience. Because people, my years as a Christian, I had many spiritual experiences. So that's not even confined to your religion. You cannot confine spirit or measure it in any way. So let's move on, man. The God gene would be a word I would use in relation to the first original people who walked on earth, who created language itself and civilization. These people were immaculate beings who did miraculous things in their time that none of us can do today. And this is why we say things like, I gotta regain my God consciousness. The people with the God gene, if you will, didn't have to regain anything. They were gods, correct? See, people, I got to give y'all the truth according to my understanding so I can be clear on where I stand on this. I reserve the title of God gene to those people. And if I were to say that I had the God gene, I don't really think it'll be accurate in comparison to those great people. And you'll see why in a minute. Let's move on. Now, another thing that my brother said was that everybody carry their mother's mitochondrial DNA in their cells. And that is true. But the brother said blacks in America are above Africans on the motherland. We must realize that all life originated on the motherland. Come on, people. It's called the motherland, okay? Now, with that being said, how can you be greater than your mother? Even the Indians on this land paid their respects to the motherland by wearing the feather of Ma'at. So anybody that says that we are more special than the Ethiopians or the Africans over there who are on the motherland with the oldest, most dominant blood on this planet is very inaccurate. Now, this is all going to tie into interracial dating. Stay with me, okay? We are not more dominant than the people who reside on the motherland. If anything, we're the same, but we cannot place ourselves above those people. All people can trace their blood back to Africa. So like I said in previous lectures, DNA itself originated in Africa. Let me say that again, people, so you can free your mind. DNA itself originated in Africa. So when people like my brothers say we better than Africans or somehow have more dominant genes, they're very inaccurate, since DNA itself only exists because of Africa. People, why you think Africans live under the most effed up conditions than any other group of people? Why you think Africa has been under attack since the beginning of time, and the people in Africa live in some of the worst conditions known to man? Because Africa is where it all started. And Africa is the birthplace of all people, and Africans carry the oldest, strongest DNA than all of us. We must never get so smart that we forget this and place ourselves above the motherland. Now let's continue so I can reach my conclusion. My brother RFG also said that we are what our mother is, which is true, but let's do some DNA tracing in a nutshell. Last time I checked, my mother had a mother, and her mother had a mother, and her mother had a mother, and so on. So when you get to tracing that DNA all the way back to its roots, you will always find yourself in the motherland. I don't want to repeat myself in this video too much, but some things just got to be repeated, y'all. My brother RFG said that we are what our mother is, and that is true. But he also said that we're somehow more dominant than the Africans in the motherland. I disagree with that, because like I said, your mother has a mother, her mother has a mother, her mother has a mother. And when you trace all of these mothers back, you find yourself in the motherland. okay, which is Africa. So I can never say now that somehow we're more special than those whose DNA predates us all and who we owe our very existence to. People, listen, y'all, me and RFG are brothers, and I love that brother. Now I need to state that again, okay? This is not a debate. This is simply me separating myself from his viewpoints, all right? And I have to give you my own words from my mouth, because often people think me and him agree with everything, which is not true. That's my brother, but we don't have to agree with everything. So I owe you my own explanation and opinion on this subject. Now let's move on. My brother also said that if you take a seed and plant the seed in two different places, you'll get a different fruit. I have to disagree with that one also, because listen, an apple is an apple no matter where you plant the seed. Now, we do know that there are different variations of apples, just like humans, but they still apples, people. Come on now. Now, let's continue so I can clear this up and give you my philosophy. Now, before I go any further, let me say this, that my conclusions are based on the studies of great master teachers. We must understand that all teachers don't agree either, but the teachers who I learned from were experts on this subject, and to this day none of them have been proven wrong. So I stand on their studies and I base my own conclusions off of their studies, but I stand on the foundation of their facts. So let's continue on.